So our final presenter is Alex Suchman. Alex's mission is to make work a source of genuine meaning and connection for everyone. She uses games and play to build thriving team cultures with her clients, and her company, Barometer XP, makes game-based experiences available for a wide range of learning and development outcomes. And Alex, turning it over to you. It's all yours.
Excellent. Let me pull up my screen and get started. It's great to be with you all today. It's always a little bit hard going last. I know for some people, I'm probably the last thing standing between you and your lunch. So I'll try to keep this, make this exciting. Today, what I'm going to talk about is how you can bring games into your learning and development, whether it's you're a facilitator or consultant bringing games into your toolkit, or you manage a team and helping you think a little bit differently about how games can be for so much more than fun. But before I dive in, I would like to ask you a question and have you share your answer in the chat. What is your favorite game? Or if you don't have a favorite game, what is a game that is meaningful to you, that brings you a lot of joy, makes you feel connected, brings some happiness into your life? See lots of great answers coming in. And while you do that, I'm going to share a story from a few months ago when I was facilitating a leadership retreat with a nonprofit. And they'd been working with another facilitator for a couple of months and did a lot of work around the Strength Finders assessment to figure out what are the different skills and unique perspectives each person brings, and how can they leverage that for greater interdependence. They felt like they loved the language. They were already using the language in how they worked together, but this was their first task at really putting that into action. So we did a pretty tough game. We did an escape room-like game that had a lot of different puzzle components that they had to solve within a quick amount of time. And they actually fell apart. They felt so stressed about having to perform really well that all of that knowledge about leaning on each other for different strengths and complement each other kind of went out of the wayside. And they realized that pretty quickly. And what their biggest takeaway was that doing that behavioral change, that internal work to change how you depend on each other and change how you talk to each other is much harder than just going through a workshop or learning a framework. It really takes that practice and operationalizing. And that's where games are so valuable. They give a chance for colleagues to spend time together and relate to each other outside of the normal context of work as people, without the high stakes of work, without having to be subject matter expertise, without the normal power dynamics and hierarchies of their positions. It's just relating as people. Now, I've heard all of the criticisms. A lot of people, when I say what I do, they mention the word forced fun. They say that they've played a lot of cringeworthy icebreakers and it's just really awkward. And I totally understand that. And that's why in my work, I've come up with 2 different frameworks to use to pick the right games and to set up games for success. And that's what I'm going to talk with you about in a little bit today. One clarification I do want to make, though, is that I am talking about games like the ones that you're sharing in the chat and not gamification, which is a really big buzzword right now. What gamification is referring to is bringing elements of games into something that's not a game to try to incentivize people to engage with it more. So think of all of those different apps on your phone where there's badges and leaderboards to get you to keep using that app. I mean real games where you're spending time with people. And the value of games in the learning and development context is multitude. Simultaneously, while you're playing games with people, you're strengthening your relations with them, which is building psychological safety, as some of my previous presenters today talked about the importance of. It's reducing stress and building trust and establishing real connections. And it's also giving a chance to practice critical interpersonal skills like communication skills and emotional intelligence in real time. And that type of experiential learning is going to be incredibly effective. So here are the 2 different frameworks that you can use if you're interested in bringing some games into your work and you want it to be successful. The first is this iceberg analogy here. Think about the different levels of depth on an iceberg. You see a big piece above the surface, but then a lot of it is below the surface. And it's the same with the value of play. As I mentioned, just spending time together outside the normal context of work is incredibly valuable for getting to know each other and building that trust and psychological safety and creating that shared identity as a team. We call that team bonding, and that might be valuable if you're onboarding some new people and you want to help them establish some connections, or if you're about to kick off a retreat or some long project, and you just want to get morale up and get people excited. If you want to go a little bit deeper, you go to the team building layer, which is just below the surface. And with that, you're playing the same games, but you're pairing it with a reflective conversation about how different people show up in the activity and how that affects other people's experience. So for example, I might really love games where there's a lot of puzzles and you're synthesizing information, or someone else might absolutely hate that and freeze up. So it's a way to just talk about how we perform, what are the different strengths and perspectives. And by having a better understanding of how we act within the games, we can make big inferences about patterns of our behavior that are directly going to translate to how we work together. So in this way, games for team building might be a really nice way to complement, say, the DISC or the Strength Finder or a course on communication skills, something like that, just to bring some of the learnings to life. The deepest level, the bottom of the iceberg, is team development. And that's where you have a group of people that are playing games together on a regular basis to get a sense of how do you perform together. If you need to make some sort of culture change or process change, or you're trying to develop leaders and understand how you lead within a specific context, the team development level gives you a way to practice that and really dive in. So this first lens is thinking about what's the level of depth you're looking to accomplish within the game as part of a broader learning and development program. The other lens is tying a game to specific outcomes. Every game at its core is an opportunity for problem solving, and it isolates particular interpersonal dynamics, so communication styles, decision-making and execution of decisions, culture. So you want to pick a game that's going to highlight those interpersonal dynamics that are important for the workshop that you're doing, or the goals of your retreat, or the particular culture change or organizational change you're going to do. What you're looking at here is a pressure matrix of 9 different dimensions of team culture that not only are used to describe what are specific learning and development outcomes for a team, but it's also a way to categorize games based on what types of conversations they categorize. I'll share with you a link to a short assessment that is based on this matrix, where you can get a sense of how do people in a team experience their culture, what do they see as the strengths and pain points, and how aligned are they? So it's a tool that you can use to match the right game. So finally, here's a link to that pressure reading if you're curious to check out that assessment. There's also a link that Linda's going to share in the chat to a white paper about the value of games for employee retention. And I could talk about this all day. If you're curious to learn more about games and how to use them, please feel free to reach out to me on email or LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.